Belch now or forever hold your peace.
Oh, good.
Welcome to Pages from the Dark Side, the monthly book club podcast with a specialization in spooky. I am your host, Dylan Ludwig, aka Mr. Hyperaware, and with me as always is my lovely wife, co-host, possibly earned a merit badge in crocheting.
No.
No?
No. I don't crochet, babe.
In knitting.
Okay, I'll take that. Alyssa Ludwig, also known as the Earbud Bookworm.
Alright. And we are here to talk about Heads Will Roll by Josh Winning. So, in case you weren't aware of me putting that merit badge joke at the beginning, this is a camp horror story.
Yes.
Like, not a campy horror story, but it's set at a somewhat like a summer camp.
Something like a summer camp, but not exactly because it's not teenagers.
Yeah, this was meant to be our Friday the 13th like special episode for that date.
But life do be lifing, so
shit happens. So
yes.
You know, here we are, and we are recording these episodes a little out of order. So if we're a little scattered on this or the next one or the previous one, you'll know why.
Right.
So
we're just doing what we need to do to get back on track. All
right. This is, as I mentioned, this is from Josh Winning, who has only one other prior book to this called Burn the Negative, which I still haven't read, but it's one of those like kind of Hollywood-centric horror books, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. I mean, sounds like it's either Hollywood or photography or something.
Yeah, this caught my attention because it showed up on a lot of like, you know, summer reads, like on Bookstagram, stuff like that. And I got interested in it because, one, Friday the 13th vibes. Always a sucker for that. And two, because, you know, summer camp horror has been kind of a staple of the slasher genre, kind of pulling off of Friday the 13th. There's been a lot of them. There's stuff like Sleepaway Camp, The Burning, countless other ones that are not coming to my mind right now.
Right.
Those are like the two immediate ones, but it's like a very common, because it's very secluded.
Right.
It's very hard to actually get like authorities out to help there. So there's like an excuse for that.
Tucker and Dale versus Evil is set at a camp. It's not summer camp, but it is a camp. They're camping.
Yeah, I suppose.
They're camping.
Well, I don't know. Like, I kind of consider that like a cabin in the woods.
They're camping.
I didn't even want to go fishing. I don't even like fishing.
God, I love that movie. All right, anyway.
This is interesting, though, because this is not a traditional summer camp story. It's not about, like, counselors or kids coming to a place where there's a slasher. This is actually, in fact, a story about people who voluntarily come here as a way to, like, escape the outside world.
Right.
Like, they have to, you know, they put away their phones, they put away all their technology, social media connections, anything like that, and just kind of vibe out in the wilderness for a while just to get away.
Right.
And everybody here has their reasons for doing it.
Yeah.
In the case of this story, the protagonist is a character who we don't really know her name until the very end of the book, if I recall.
Yeah, no, she does not divulge her name.
But because that's the kind of thing with the anonymity of the camp, is that everybody kind of comes up with their own name.
Yeah.
One to be, like I said, to be anonymous, but also kind of that whole like, well, here you can be whoever you want to be kind of thing. And this person chooses the name Willow because she used to be on I guess it's like a sitcom.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a sitcom.
Called We Love Willow, which I imagine was like kind of like a Punky Brewster sort of kind of show, the way that they describe it.
Yeah, but I think she's like an adult, so
is she
I
an
don't
adult
know.
when they made it, or was she like a child actor?
No, because like she was still on it until just a few weeks prior to her going to the camp.
Okay, so it's like, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to find like a good like, you know, thing to compare it to.
Yeah, I couldn't come up with one personally.
Later iCarly or something like that.
Oh, like the reboot?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
But she is here because she got canceled.
Right.
we don't find out why until much later.
Yeah.
But it's
she refers to it as Tweet-ageddon.
Tweet-ageddon, yeah, which, depending on your sympathies for this character is kind of going to depend on your sensitivities towards cancel culture to begin with, which, to be fair, cancel culture is one thing, where consequence culture is what I prefer to refer to it as. Because as evidenced by people that have been quote-unquote canceled, a lot of those people have not stayed canceled. They're coming back in some capacity.
Well, yeah, because most people don't truly care.
Yeah. You think Kevin Spacey lost his career? No, he's coming back.
Oh my god. I know, and J.K. Rowling, never disappeared.
J.K. Rowling won't go away.
She won't. She just keeps coming back and doubling down and tripling down and quadrupling down, and good god, okay, let's get back to the...
And people keep supporting her.
Let's get back to the book.
So she finds a bunch of other people that are at this camp that are there for a number of reasons, but it's heavily suspected that they also got quote-unquote canceled in some capacity.
Right.
Whether it's through social media, whether it's just through some shit that happened in their life that made them a pariah. We find all that out later. Come to find out also, there is, of course, somebody who is at this camp that is starting to pick them off one by one.
Of course.
And that's basically the main setup of the story.
Right.
So, we did something kind of interesting when we read this one, because I read this one probably like a year ago.
Yeah.
Had some feelings on it, and then when we were putting the schedule together, I threw this one out there because it was thematically appropriate for a Friday the 13th sort of setup.
Right, and there was only one Friday the 13th this year, and we missed it.
But
that's fine.
But we're making up for it now.
Right.
And so you read it, and then you were like, we kind of made the decision of let's wait and see how we feel about this
right,
one.
Because normally we discuss things before we record so that we kind of each have an idea of what the other one thought of the book and what some of our favorite and least favorite parts were, so that we can kind of know where to guide the conversation when we're having these recording sessions, and we didn't do that with this one.
No, all I had to go off of was your Goodreads rating, which is sitting at a 3 out of 5. So,
well, you just spoiled the end where we give our skull rating.
Well, maybe it'll be subject to change by the end of it.
Well, we'll see.
So, I'm very curious. I'm going to throw it over to you, how you felt, general feelings about this one.
Okay, so, are we just going to...
We
go into our non-spoiler thing?
Let's leave spoilers out for now.
Okay, so my thing with this is I'm going to say I would recommend this book to certain people. I think you might enjoy this book if you enjoy campy stuff. Mm-hmm. And I do mean that in the campy way, not camp, but also...
stuff that kind of veers into comedy.
Like the dark comedy kind of just campiness.
Yeah.
I also might suggest it if you I don't know how to word this without sounding really mean, but if you like more juvenile writing, I think you might like this.
Stuff that's a little on the easier to read side.
Yeah, easier to read side. Although I will say there were some parts that were hard for me to comprehend, and I don't know if that was just because some of the names were very similar, and so I think I was getting some of the characters confused. Mm-hmm. But also there were just some plot points where I was like, I don't know if this makes sense.
Okay.
And even when things kind of culminated at the end and we found out everything that was going on, there were still some parts that I went back and reread just to make sure, and I was like, yeah, that still doesn't really make sense to me. So, I don't know, I'm not going to say it was a bad book. I'm not. Because I don't think it had some really good parts. And I definitely think that a lot of people will probably get a lot out of this. I think that you could enjoy this book very much. I will say, though, I personally did not have a great time reading this book. Personally.
Well, I am pretty much right there with you.
Okay.
I feel bad about it, too, because there's a lot of people in circles that I follow that praise this book a lot.
Yeah.
This is one of those cases where I was not on the same page with them because okay, so to be as vague as possible as far as plot points of
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
This is ultimately a story that's about, thematically, it's about, the idea of, cancel culture, the idea of consequences for actions.
Right.
And whether the justice served for those actions is actually, like, appropriate, like, comparatively. I felt like there was a point where they could have made a really good analogy for that.
Yeah.
I have to be really vague about that specifically because...
Until we get to the end of the... Until we get to
spoiler
spoiler
talk. Because that
talk.
ties into, like, the identity of the killer.
Right.
But there was a point where I was with it. And I was kind of, like... I wasn't liking the characters too much. I felt like...
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
No, just I had that same thing where I didn't really like any of the characters.
Yeah. Willow is a very conceited character.
Yeah.
And there's this, Happy Pride Month for this. There is this developing romance that happens between her and another inhabitant, I guess, of the camp.
Inhabitant.
I don't know a better name for it. Visitor of the camp, Danny. And those two have a romance that starts to kind of flourish before we get to the second act of the book, which is where all the twisty stuff starts to happen.
What is it with books like this and naming their lesbian characters Danny?
What's the other one that does it?
Final Girl Support Group. Wasn't that Danny?
Oh, right. Yeah, it was.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah, no.
Sorry.
You're right.
That just struck me all of a sudden.
It's a very gay name, okay?
Apparently. Anyway.
Yeah, but the characters feel very kind of, I don't know, I guess, shallow, very kind of petty in their motivations the more that you find out about them.
Yeah, and I feel like, if I may interject, I kind of also feel like they just weren't fully fleshed out.
The only one that was Juniper.
Yeah.
Which is the 80s like action star actress, I think.
Right.
Who we don't find out why she's there until much later, but she's the only one that actually like feels like I get a fleshed out story.
It almost feels like that was the character that he had to begin with, and he's like, I'm building the story around her, but I don't want her to be our protagonist.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could be totally off base, but that's just how it felt.
Yeah, because like in any other case, like that's one of those where I'm like, okay, that should be your final girl there.
Right.
Because I'm starting to really not... I was at a point where I was like annoyed with Willow, and then it did reach a point where I'm like, I'm really kind of beginning to hate this character.
Yeah, I didn't like her.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been on a streak with that. The last few books that I've read, I have not liked the protagonist, and I'm just like...
Yeah, and ultimately the story, as it gets into more revelations, it escalates to twists where at first I'm like, okay, I'm kind of with it. It's not making a whole lot of sense, but also it's mimicking kind of the nature of those summer camp slashers I talk about, where especially like the whodunit ones, where they get more and more ridiculous as they go along.
Yeah.
But the last reveal where they lay it out is one of those where they lay it out for you, I was just like, what?
Yeah, no.
This makes no fucking sense.
No, and I mean, and some of it, like, I know we had said we were going to talk about it, first on the podcast there, but I was texting you periodically being like, wait, I think this is about to happen. Don't tell me, though.
Right.
And for most of them, I was right. There was a couple that I was a little bit off on, and then there was some where I was just like, I hadn't even guessed it because it was just so out of left field. It felt almost unfair, if that makes sense.
It felt...
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, this felt like some bad TV drama storytelling twist that happened at the end.
The old Lifetime movies.
Yeah. Yeah, like, where it's just... It feels like, oh, we have to put this in here because I want to put an extra surprise in for the reader, as opposed to anything that feels like organic. Because
exactly, it didn't feel like it flowed.
Because before that, it actually reached a point where I was like, okay, this story's done.
Right.
Like, we can move on. But then they're like, no, we gotta.
But wait, there's more.
We gotta add more. And it ultimately kind of doesn't really lead to anything.
It doesn't.
So, yeah, listen, I had a hard time with this one. I'm sure there are other people out there that don't feel the same way that I do.
Right.
But I don't know, like, there might be somebody that sees it the way I do. I mean, that's just the nature of, everybody having their own opinion.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, like a book that I recently read and I gave a fairly low rating, it's got like a really high rating on Goodreads because most people liked it and I just didn't.
Yeah.
So, it happens.
This is one that was like really up my alley and I felt disappointed like that it was.
No, yeah, I get that.
It was one of those where it's like, excuse me, they kept bending and bending and bending and then it just broke.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I do really want to read Burn the Negative in case that has the same issues that this does.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. The same author can have such very different writing styles. There are some authors where like I'll really like one of their books and really dislike another one. So yeah, it's definitely worth checking out his other book to see if we like it.
All right. I don't know that we can go any deeper without spoiling it. So
spoiler time?
Yep. So 3, 2, 1. Okay.
All right.
What the fuck? Kurt.
Yeah, I don't...
What the hell?
I don't know. That whole plot point...
That's the part where I was like, this doesn't make sense.
No.
So, there's a character throughout the whole story, another visitor named Kurt. And he's kind of this very sensitive artist kind of guy. And the whole time, he's kind of making eyes at one of the... I'd say counselors, but I guess it's just one of the employees there. And with all the queer themes that are going on in this, because this is ultimately a queer story, and that actually ties into the cancellation that happens to Willow because of a very misguided thing that she did.
Right.
But Kurt is making eyes at this other employee, a guy named Ty. Mm-hmm. And the whole entire time you're thinking, oh, and Willow is thinking, because we're restricted to her perspective
most of the
time. I do kind of like how they cut away from her POV to show a kill.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool. But you think that he's attracted to him. No. It turns out that Ty was responsible for the death of his sister in a drunk driving accident.
Yes.
And I'm just and to get to this point to exact revenge, because then he also decides, okay, well, everybody else nobody else is innocent here. Right. They all have to go. He taps into the dark history of this camp with this what is it? The folk legend that...
Oh, Knock Knock Nancy?
Knock Knock Nancy. He exploits that.
Yeah.
And brings about the past demons of the camp. And the person that's really doing all the killings is this old pastor that lived there, whose daughters, one is one of the other employees in the camp, kind of like the den mother of the whole entire thing.
Yeah, they call her the mother.
And then the other one is the sister that has been kind of like hidden away because, we think, oh, well, she's mentally ill. She can't live on her own at first.
Right.
But it turns out they both are the daughters of the pastor.
Right.
Which... that whole entire idea is what I thought was interesting. This whole, we're going to try to tie cancellation culture or consequence culture into, tie it together thematically with religious persecution. Because if you think about it, that's the original cancel culture.
Right.
It's the whole, it's Salem witch trials. It's, wearing the, scarlet letter type of stuff. Like things that brand you as being somebody that needs to not be looked at the same way from the rest of society. And that's the part where I thought was cool, having like this preacher killer going around being like the physical manifestation of that. Mm-hmm. And that's the part where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of into this. Like, I kind of like where this is tying in thematically. But the reveal that Kurt was somehow manipulating the events from the beginning.
Yeah, and... then, I don't know, just the whole thing.
Not only that, but it's one of those where when you listen to his reasoning for it and you listen to his...
Right.
And what his motivation was, which seems very singular when you think about it, like deep down, I'm just like, there had to have been an easier way to do this.
Right? No, and I'm the way I described it, and I did talk to my therapist about this book because that's part of what we do in therapy is talk about what we've been reading and stuff like that. And I told him I was very disappointed about the last couple of books I read, and I specifically was like, it was very cringy. Like, and that's the only way I can describe it. It was just there were so many parts of it where I was like, this could have been written just slightly differently, and it wouldn't have felt so. Ugh.
Yeah.
But it did. I don't know. And that's why I'm like, other people might like it. Because they might like that writing style. I don't. It just felt very, I don't know. Like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not like manipulative. Because, I mean, like, you're supposed to manipulate when you're, writing.
Contrived.
You're supposed to, I guess, kind of. It just felt like things were worded ways that I didn't think they needed to be worded. And just some of the things that they were saying just felt wrong and off, and it just didn't play out well to me.
It felt, especially with like the dialogue for the most part, it felt more like, I hate to put it this way, but the dialogue felt more like the angriest Facebook comment section that you could come across. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it feels very message based. They don't feel like, these people don't feel like real people in that regard.
They don't.
They feel like, just comments that you would find on Twitter or on Facebook or something like that of just people bitching back and forth of, especially like overreaction to like being canceled or overreaction to somebody saying something that seems tone deaf, because that's ultimately what happened to Willow. She said something that was tone deaf.
Right.
People like it was one of those like taken out of context, but then again, like the context, when you just look at it, it doesn't look good for her.
Right, no.
But I do think people take it too far.
But then just like the whole, I don't know, I feel like it felt like one of those where it was, the message was unclear.
Yeah.
Are we supposed to take away from it that cancel culture is bad? Are we supposed to take away from it that cancel culture is good? I don't know.
Yeah.
I literally don't know what the message was in this book. I don't know.
You don't know because the characters walk away from this whole situation way too clean from it.
Well, and it's not just that. It's just like, I don't know. It's like, it just feels like the message was not clear.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just that the people walk away too clean, because some of them died, you know what I mean? Like, but that's the whole thing, where it's like, are we supposed to be like, oh yeah, we should continue to, do this thing where people have consequences for their actions, or are you saying that, like, I don't know?
Yeah, I am, man, like, you basically said everything I wanted to say on this one.
Well, there you go.
I think let's go ahead and get to ratings on this.
We have very similar thoughts, and I don't think we need to drag this out any further.
Listen, I was being generous when I initially gave my rating for this, like, when I first read it.
Yeah.
In talking about it, I think that I have to, and thinking about it more, I think I have to bump it down.
Okay.
This is a 2 out of 5 skulls for me.
Okay.
I really struggled with this one on the second reread. Like, it was not a fun time.
Yeah, well,
like, I appreciate things about it. Right,
that's what I was saying. Like, there are some parts that were really good, and I think that's one reason why it's so disappointing.
I appreciate the setting. I appreciate this mythology that they tried to build around it. But they had a great opportunity to actually, like, kind of bring the thematics of it together, the two things I talked about, like modern cancel culture and old school cancel culture,
right?
But they cop it out at the end,
right?
And they don't fulfill it, and that was the most frustrating part of it for me. So a 2. This is the first, guys. I really did not care for this one thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, and I think for me, giving even just a 3 skull is going to be a first on this this podcast.
And you're a very generous rater otherwise.
And I still think I'm probably going to give it a 3, but I am going to say that, using like the story graph model, it'd probably be like a 2.75.
Yeah.
I don't think it's not a solid 3.
But when you round it up, it would be.
I'll just round it up to a 3. Yeah. So I'll say 3 for me. And like I say, I do think some people might really enjoy this book. But it wasn't for me. Wasn't enough for me.
All right, guys, a 2 and a 3. Ooh, this one is
gonna have to make new little image things on Canva for our skull ratings.
All right, well, there you have it. That's Heads Will Roll. Which, to be fair, not one mention of that Yeah Yeah Yeahs song in there.
Oh my god.
So I would dock another skull, but I've already been hard enough on this.
I love you.
So that's it for this one. Next time that you'll see us, we will probably doing something special for a July 4th episode.
Yes. Cross your fingers that the stars align and we actually get it out on time.
Yep, I'm working on the reread for that one.
Yep, and I will be doing my initial read for that.
I'm just going to tell you right now on the reread for that, it's a doozy, man.
Yeah, I think we might be using these images again.
But yeah, so we'll come back with that, and we will have hopefully another regular release in July for that as well.
Yes, that is the plan.
Yep. So.
All right.
And if you have any suggestions for anything for us to read, you can email us at pagesfromthedarkside@gmail.com, and you can follow me. I'm writing again on WordPress, mrhyperware.wordpress.com, yep. And you can check out my TikTok at Mr. Hyperware, because now I'm posting TikToks that have book recommendations for if you like this kind of movie, you might like this.
Very cool. All right. Well, we will.
So with that,
wrap it up.
Yep. With that, we will see you in the next chapter of Pages from the Dark Side.
This has been a production of Pages from the Dark Side. Sound and video production by Alyssa and Dylan Ludwig. Music and artwork by Aaron Shively.